Hi everyone, this is work. Yes, I'm Stephen Galloway with The Hollywood Reporter. Thanks for being here, and I'm going to introduce some of the cast from Lion. Here we go. Dev Patel. Nicole Kidman. Priyanka. Iain Canning, the producer. Screenwriter, Luke Davies. Composer, Dustin O'Halloran. Oh, hi, hello, hi. What's your name?
Saroo Brierley.
Oh, Saroo. Absolute extraordinary film. Second time I'd seen it, and I was thrilled to miss the Governor's Awards and see the movie instead. Saroo, I want to start with you. How much do you remember of that time when you were in India?
I remember everything. It was my treasure. It was a link to my identity, really. And I remember saying this to myself: if you lose all that, then you probably never will find your way back home. And what I did was I put it in a box, I shut it, this is my memory, and put it aside. And I thought I will need that one day. And case to the point, I'm glad I did that. So I think there was a lot of sort of psychological scarring in the things that happened. I was very sort of vivid person. Hence why those memories were so perpetual, and why that I remembered them for such a long time. But I'm really glad I did. It was so close to me. The memories of my family, my sister, my brother, and sort of the trials and tribulations that I went through in the train ride, and also in Calcutta, and coming to Australia. So yeah, I'm very fortunate for that, and very lucky. So weird. How difficult was it when you moved to Tasmania? Well, I don't. It was. If you think about it, and you've just seen the movie, you can see that right from the start of being with my family, there's change and there's a theme, which is change. And you're going from being with my family to getting on the train, to getting lost, to going through the trials and tribulations in Calcutta. Then all of a sudden, just like that, coming to Australia, meeting with a new family, and growing up. So change is something that has been in my life, even to now. And for me, it was just the thing that I wanted the most was just love and to be with my family again. But I had this choice of a new family, and I took the bull by the horn, and I said to myself, I don't think I'll ever see my family again. They've tried. This is in India when I was at this adoption home, and I said to myself, they've tried, and I've got the choice of staying here or going with my new family in Australia. And I took that opportunity, and I went to Australia, and it was something that I believe consciously I did actually do it, and I'm glad I did, because even though it was the wrong train, but in a way, it sort of took me to the right station.
One more question. When you did meet your mother again, you must have romanticised that so much over the years. What was the actual experience of seeing her again after 25 years?
It was such a pivotal moment, and I'd been longing for such a long time. I didn't really think, that something like this would ever really happen in my life, that I'd get to see her again. It was always sort of a dream, please let me see her one more time. And I say things like that to myself before, all the Google Earth sort of searching happened, and sort of praying and thinking about things. But seeing her for the first time, we saw eye to eye, and I don't know what was going through her head, in her mind, but she would have been like, I used to see you playing with your sister as a little boy, running around with Sari, chasing your sister, and vice versa. And all of a sudden, one day, you just vanished like a ghost. And now, after 25 years, you come back, materialising on a Sunday afternoon, in front of me. And, for me, it was like a nuclear fusion had gone on. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know, is this sort of a dream? Because so many times I've been dreaming about, all sorts of situations in my sort of life, but more particularly this one here. And my mother and I, we quite sort of, I guess, emotional, internal. And it only took a little bit, like a couple of hours before we just both fell down, and tears just came pouring out. Because it was quite a shock to both of us, isn't, what's this? This is just crazy. And then when the realisation it came that this is actually real and it's factual, it's not fictional, that's when we both sort of really sort of touched, and tears really wept.
Priyanka, when you came to play that character, how much time did you spend with her in real life?
With her? I met her once, and I think it was for an hour. But when I met Garth, that was the, I asked him that, we have to meet her. But he had etched her out in such a very, deep way, because he had spent so much time, and Luke, and obviously because of Saroo and the way he sees her and his memories, right? He had written her so well that I'm like, okay, I it's almost like I know her, but I won't be able to breathe her till I actually meet her. But and then I met her for an hour, and Dave and I met her together, and it was incredible. It was a whole lifetime in that 1 hour. That's what we actors do, I guess. We have to live that moment. Even if it's like 15 minutes, but we have to live that entire, lifetime, of her journey. And I had to experience that because obviously God envisioned her and had so much depth in her journey and the way he had written her. But at the same time, she's a real person, and for that I needed to know that she, breathes, and how does she breathe, and how does she walk, and how does she feel pain, and
Iain,
sorry if I'm making any sense.
Very much, okay. Yes, and it's interesting in real life because you see what a good actress you are, Iain, how did you find this project?
Emil Sherman and myself, who runs Seesaw, are the producers, we were in Sundance, and Garth Davis had directed 3 of the episodes of the 6 at the Top of the Lake. And we were in Sundance, and we're an Australian and a UK company, and our absolute focus has to be international stories coming out of those 2 locations, and then we'll make a film wherever in the world. But there was this sort of gossip going around about this incredible true story in Australia, And we felt very separated from it in Utah. And it was like the total wrong location for us to be in that moment. And Emil turned around to me and said, I think I've got to go back to Sydney. I think I've got to fly back now and meet with Saroo and his representation. And I think Garth should direct it. And I think we should just pull it all together really quickly and make it. And I said, I think you've got to get back to Sydney. So he flew back and met with Saroo and everyone pretty quickly. And for us, it was really about keeping true to the actual facts as much as we possibly could, and also to honour this journey that Saroo and his family have been on, because it was very recent. I mean, it still is very recent. The real footage at the end of the film has the director of the film off camera, you know, when the mothers united. So it's very fresh for everyone. So we felt very honoured and blessed.
What's the hardest part of producing a film in India?
I think it's sort of different. It's a sort of chaos that you have to try and help and organise. But we had an incredible local production services group of people who were, we couldn't have made the film without them. But it was, trying to coordinate, trying to combine an Australian crew and an Indian crew, and also finding some as well.
And how did you find him? He's just extraordinary.
We actually started, so as soon as Saroo trusted us with the rights, we knew that we had to bring together an incredible group of actors to tell the older story of Saroo, but also we needed to find this boy. So, and in a way, that first hour is the relationship with his mother, and it's a pyramid on that 5-year-old boy. So we sort of looked in 4 locations. I think 2,000 children we auditioned, and it was about a sort of 6 month to a year process actually to whittle it down. And Garth was just saying, I just need to feel something special. I need to feel a light coming out of this little kid when I see it, and it was Sonny.
What's his background in real life?
He's a working class kid. I think he lives 4 hours outside of Mumbai, I think. And yeah, he was, he's since been in other films. I think he's got the action star run, I think. So,
Luke, when you wrote the script, and it's a very difficult script to write, and you made some really interesting decisions. The first one is you don't start with a flashback. The second one is you never really cut away from the boy. There's no parallel story, there's no subplot. What were the decisions you had to make in writing it?
The two, well, you've just spoken about the two primary things that were the defining elements of my experience of writing the screenplay. One was that from the very beginning I said to these guys and to Garth, the director, I have a feeling that this is so profoundly beautiful and simple and powerful that we should not do what you would expect to be the obvious thing to do, begin with your adult star actors and have some incident that makes us flash back into the origin of the story and then loop that through and tell the story. Let's try and begin with basically the kid at the moment of catastrophe and see if we can plow through in a linear form from there. And Seesaw and Garth were like, okay, they completely supported that. We can always change it if it doesn't work, and we never turned our back from that first moment. And the second thing was the singularity of that first act, or that first hour, or 50 minutes, whatever it is. I very much in my mind instinctively had a model of WALL-E in my mind for that first act of the robot wandering around that post-apocalyptic landscape. It was just it was just like here, just hovering in the back of the first act for me. It was, because I knew there wouldn't be a lot of language in all of those scenes, that it would be about, in the screenplay, trying to describe what's happening to little Saroo and trying to make the screenplay an emotional experience for all the people who would then read it.
What changed from the screenplay to the finished film?
Nothing. We don't feel that we made any mistakes or missed out on anything, but there's a handful of scenes that are really, really beautiful that aren't in the final film. because...
You know, that Dev's was telling me about early on about his favourite scene. We'll come to that in a minute.
Just a few that, and they didn't fit into the sort of narrative, emotional flow of the film, or they told you too much information in a way that, I mean, sometimes that happens. You sit watching a cut, and then you realise that in your gut, this doesn't work the way you thought it would work on the page. So we had to lose a couple of beautiful moments.
The score is extraordinary. What's incredible about any incredible film is always you have just the miracle of the story, the directing, these just gorgeous performances, and the score. You didn't make it deeply rooted in India. You made it very haunting. When you went about writing this, what was your goal and what was your thinking?
Well, I co-composed the score with Hauschka, who couldn't be here tonight. And Garth originally asked him, or got in contact with him, and asked him if he had imagined to do the score with me without realizing that we had known each other for 10 years. So Garth has this sort of spiritual, serendipitous way of putting things together, and I think that this was one of those moments. And I think we always wanted to create a score that was more about the human story and not separate countries and class, and you know, ultimately it's a human story, and just hearing his story it always hits me really emotionally. And so I think I was in tears so many times just writing this score, because it's such a powerful story. And when we got the film, it just hits you like this. So I think everything was just very instinctual, and Garth was really, I think everybody was searching for the truth and to honor his story.
Did you think of going in a different direction at any point?
No, it was so natural to work with Garth, and I think he chose us very specifically for what we do. And I think that it was very clear. There were some moments that we needed to. I think ultimately it was about restraint and not going too much, because it is a very emotional story, and there's so much already laid out that we don't want to cover the feelings too much. It's more about just creating, I guess, a place of safety. And so for us, it was always about just how do we pull it back to the right amount.
Did you draw on any other scores or any classical music that influenced you?
I think we were really searching for a theme and something that also had an idea of forward movement and repetition. And so in the score, there's motifs that work in this way, because it's two halves of the story, but both are connected, and it's a circle. So we worked with a lot of these. The main theme is a sort of motif that keeps moving, but it never resolves.
So Dev and Nicole left the best for last. Just exquisite performances. And not for the first time, I have to say. Dev, you had to persuade these guys to give you the part. How did you do that?
I'm never going to live this story down, am I? Well, yeah, I got whisperings of this incredible story from my team. And, journeys like this don't come around every so often for someone that looks like I do. And it's the truth. And so they're like, yeah, we'll set up a meeting. They're working on the script, go in there. And I ended up meeting Luke and Garth in his house in Koreatown. And I knock on the door and I realize, looking behind Luke, that there's this massive whiteboard with all these stickies on it, kind of like Saroo's journey. I was like, way too premature coming in this room. And I was like, guys, I really love this, blah, blah. And Luke was like, just don't look at this board, it's classified information. I kind of had to go through the rounds I did a Skype audition with Garth from my bathroom, because that's the best reception at the house I was staying at. And then I met him in London when I was preparing for a film with Jeremy Irons called The Man Who Knew Infinity. And we were... someone saw it. It was a really profound moment, you know, meeting someone so spiritually grounded. And he really, I think, opened us all up to travel places internally that we've never gone before. It was a 6-hour mammoth audition, and I came out of the room spent, but totally fulfilled. And that's you know how. I also bumped into you at Whole Foods, and I'd done my Skype audition, and I was like, Luke, how did it go? And he was like, yeah, you know, I really want you to get it, you know.
Yeah, no, but first of all, I saw you coming down the aisle, and I was like, Dev, and you had that little moment where you were like, oh, is it a fan about to be...
No.
And I was like, Luke Davies, I wrote the screenplay.
But that meant a lot, you know, his vote of confidence, you know, was beautiful.
What did you have to do in that 6 hours?
You know, oh man, a lot really. You know, we looked at pictures and so we spoke about the journey, and the last thing, 5.5 hours in, I was completely exhausted, and he goes, you know, before you go, would you mind doing something? And I'm like, yeah, what is it? He goes, I just want you to roar. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, I want you to just scream and kind of like an exorcism, let out everything. Imagine that you're seeing your mother and your brother and you want to expel this kind of weight that has been on your shoulders for a long time. And I'm sitting there, you know, I've just met him. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Just scream. He's like, I'm going to put on some music. And I was on the way in listening to this score. But I was listening to the score from this Inarritu film, and then he's just like, I'm going to put on this song, and it was the exact same song. And I just, together, you know, the music was playing, and I completely broke down, and it was a really cathartic kind of experience. He does that. What he does is he breaks you down, and he gets you to this stillness, this kind of naked. I haven't been able to be in that space before. I've always played these very hyperactive, very energetic kind of wide-eyed creatures, but you know, to be able to be still and be that raw, it takes a very, very incredible director and human being to do that.
Was it your decision to bulk up, and how did you do that?
So after the audition, he's like, you know, I you know, if we decide to go with you, I really want you to change. You know, it's late, guys. Come on. No, he was like, I want to see a Dev Patel that no one's seen before, and you know. So he's like, you know, I want you to go to the gym. So I ate like a glutton for 8 months, and you know, grow your hair out and become a man, really. It's just sounding all wrong. In my head it sounded way more poetic. But, no, really, and the script, you know, and Saroo's journey, I called up my manager straight after I walked out of that audition and said, if I get this, don't send me anything for the next 8 months. Don't distract me with any other work or any other auditions. I want to fully commit every fiber of myself to this. The script demands it. His story demands it. And I think everyone did that, you know. The first scene I did with Nicole, you know, I walked into the room and it was a sacred space and she was looking out at the scene. It was that scene where she's talking about why she adopted us. And I had this front row seat to this incredible actress just opening her soul. So everyone,
Other thing is, Dev shot the final sequence, finding his mother first.
yeah, that was the first thing.
Shows how incredible he was at getting into that space right at the very start of the shoot. Very difficult.
Saroo, do you remember when you both first met, you and Dev?
Yes, I do. It was at Hobart having breakfast, yeah. And you were having bacon, egg and sausages and to like up, and I'm like, whoa, that's nice.
I was wiring my insides.
But yeah, we talked
Talk about
we talked about not so much about the movie, but what we've done in the past, and just general conversation, and just sort of getting to know each other, and what school you went to, and the subjects that you did, and sort of a bit of a work history as well, and then we took a drive to see everyone else. Because everyone was just going to, the Brierleys were going to meet the real Brierleys were going to meet the cast, Brierley cast, and yeah, we were speeding up to meet everyone, listening to London Grammar. So
this is the thing about Saroo that completely blows my mind, is he has such an incredible photographic memory. Down to the clothes I was wearing, to the song we were listening to in the car. He remembers it, and that is really a complete, to go through such trauma at such a young age, you can suffer from a sort of PTSD and close that off. But I think it's kind of the love that, your mother gave you in India that allowed you to remember such things so vividly. And, he's looking, Google Earth at that time, this app had just come out and it was just a blurry screen. These pixels. I couldn't make anything out. They had actually recreated that app for me to use. But the amount of information Saroo could gather from these, to find his mother from space, is incredible.
I want to ask you, Iain, one more question before I come to Nicole, which is, you said when we were talking earlier on that, you had some favourite scenes that were cut, and I gather that quite a bit was cut from the Australian part of the film. Tell me, which of your darlings was killed?
Hey, this is dangerous ground. No. Listen, everyone, with a film like this, with such a big ensemble, it's so sweeping and so intimate, there comes a point where I think the audience are just dying for that connection at the end. And, we've got all the moments in it, but, the beauty was Garth took me on this really long journey, and I ended up, in Cockles Creek, the southernmost tip, naked in a river, screaming, doing all sorts of scenes. And for me, what I take from it is I grew as a human being, being able to do that, and kind of understood a lot about myself.
Was it a difficult film to edit?
Well, it's 25 years, or 20 years. So, I there's, and if we're actually being honest, I would say there's probably quite a lot of the film that isn't in there from both sections. The whole sort of searching, going along the train tracks for young Saroo, all of those aspects have been cut. So it was very tough to sort of just constantly look at it, say, right, how much is the weight of this first hour affect the second hour? How do we make sure that everyone's performances all flow through, and how do we make all of that connective tissue work in terms of how you get from A to B to C. So it was tricky, but Alexander, our editor, did an extraordinary job, and it was tough condensing that 20 years. But I think just going back to Luke's point about the structure, is that what was very clear for us, because we're all storytellers in our ways, and the first thing you do when you describe the story is say it's about a 5-year-old boy who ends up on the wrong train. So you don't say it's a 25-year-old Australian thing. So we just wanted to be pure about the story, and that was tough.
Nicole, yet another magnificent performance. It's just so lovely to see the great work you've done. This one, you have a real-life model. Did you meet her, and how did you create that role?
Yeah, I met her. That was imperative from when I sat with Garth, and he said, Sue wants you to play her.
Would you have told her if that wasn't true?
And I said, is she open to meeting with me and talking? And it was like, yeah, but you'll have... He gave me a number, and so I had to pursue it. And your mum was so open and generous with me. She got on a plane, she came up from Hobart, we met at my apartment in Sydney, and we basically, from the minute you meet her, she's one of those people that you can speak to. You just sort of tell everything to, and because she's incredibly open and warm. And so it was just one of those things where you just go, I've connected. And we actually just had a phone call. We did an interview together where we were on the phone again 2 nights ago for an hour, and then we sort of stayed on the phone. Everyone else got off. It was we kept talking. But it's that kind of person in my life. I was so lucky that it just happened, and I'm so grateful to now have her, because she's a wonderful listener, and she's just got an enormous amount of love, which I feel is the essence of this film, is unconditional love.
What did she say that gave you the most insight into her character?
Well, I mean, when you play a supporting role in a film, everyone thinks, you get to do a little bit less. You actually have to do all the work that you have to do for a leading role, because you've got such finite moments to try and layer in all the performance. And so it wasn't one thing, it was more just absorbing her life and what led her to, and me understanding that, which is a very huge, crucial point in her life. She had the vision, and she'll tell you it, and I relate to it, where she said, I had the vision that I was going to, a brown-skinned child, I was going to adopt a brown-skinned child, and she made it happen. It's extraordinary. But I would not reveal all her confidences. I mean, that would be for her to do, but she was completely open about everything.
Is it easier for you to act without doing an American accent?
I think once you're in a character and you've done the work, because it is a lead up, and then once you're there, it flows. So, I mean, I'm sure there's actors in the room. You do all of the preparation, and the accent goes in. As long as it's going in at the same time as all of the emotion, all of everything. If you're just technical with it, I think it's so much harder. And I have, I'm left-handed, so I have I feel that comes into play in some way. But I hear things, so rather than phonetically working on things, I tend to hear and work in almost a musical way. So as long as I can hear something, then I'm able to do it. I mean, I'm in the middle of doing a Virginian Southern accent right now, which is, as long as I'm in it, it flows out. As soon as I start to think about it and go, ooh, this sound, that sound, then I get like, ooh, this is impossible. But as long as I'm in it, it flows.
Did you both rehearse together a lot?
Well, we rehearsed in a really sort of, Garth, which I have to say is such a pity he's not here. He's in Italy shooting, but we'll all sing his praises. This is his first film. I mean, he did do Top of the Lake, but this is his first film, which has to be... But he fought for the rehearsal period, which is hard when you're doing a film with a limited budget. You've got to get everybody there, but it's so worth fighting for, particularly because of us needing to rehearse or just feel comfortable. But when you're working with little non-actor children, you have to earn that. That's not something, they don't walk in and go, okay, now act. You have to win them over, build the trust, and he set up.
Do you do that off camera, and you spend time?
Yeah. He was so smart because he goes, he loves cricket. So we were all, David Wenham, who plays my husband in the film, and I've known since I was 14, so we were lucky.
Oh, wow.
That helps. We could easily be married. So we have a rhythm, and it was that was the easy part. But we had to work together to become the parents of these two little boys that didn't speak English, that had arrived from India. And so we're in the rehearsal room throwing the cricket ball.
Wow.
And I'm terrible at cricket, which Sonny was not impressed by. Sonny's the no. So, but that's how you sort of bond, and a great rehearsal process.
For all of you, what was the toughest moment on the shoot? Iain?
I think we had a limited, we cleared the bridge in Calcutta. We cleared the bridge, and I think we had...
That bridge is actually in Calcutta, is it?
Yeah, we had very limited hours to do that whole sequence. So I think from just a practical, shifting Indian life for a few hours, that was, from a production point of view, very tough.
Had you been to India before?
No.
Priyanka, do you think the film presents a view of India that you recognise?
So, most definitely in a very different and different way. Garth, again, has this orbit, and he's so organic in his approach, visually as well, working with his actors and everything. And with the time he was working with, I think it was based in the 70s? I don't know, the early part. So even with the colors and everything, he depicted it absolutely just the way it is, and there are no, romantic notions of what India is and the colors are. It is what it is. It is a lot of it, and it's intense, and you will get lost there. And imagine a 5-year-old looking for his home. And so that was absolutely in every possible way. He does full justice, and it wasn't a foreigners or a visitor's point of view of what India is, and and there are things we've seen, but this was incredible. It could be anywhere story, but quite honestly, what makes it so significant is because with billions of people, and then there's this 5-year-old who's looking for his mom and his village, and it's just an intense journey, and God does full justice to it, technically, spiritually.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, two of the characters that we're forgetting is the geography is India and Australia, and Greg, our DOP, he plants those seeds with Garth early on in the movie, Sonny running through. And subliminally, I think it's in the audience's mind. There's a scene where I'm jogging with Rooney on a cliff, and then I'm sitting down, and there's this incredible view, and it looked like we were in Google Earth. So the geography is intimate and also sprawling at the same time.
The film has such
They
a
are
great
massive
sense of
characters.
place, that you sense
connects everything.
an Australia and an India with these two halves that are really linked by that big, just extraordinary score. Luke, what was the toughest single moment for you in all this?
It was just a technical thing, really. I visited set in India, and I visited set in Melbourne, where they were shooting a few of the Tasmanian things. It was really just at that extraordinary period just before, because the scripts had this amazing heated bidding war at Cannes, and in the several weeks before that, when we were trying to get it finished in order to give it to people and have that happen at Cannes, I was here in LA, and I was having just notes sessions and everyone was in different countries and different time zones. So I felt like I was operating on a 19-hour-a-day time cycle, waking up to notes, having phone calls and Skype calls with people in different time zones, and it was a beautiful feedback loop. It was the most intense part of the script of finally fine-tuning everything that mattered about it to all of us, but it was absolutely exhausting and stressful too.
Dev, how about for you? What was the toughest moment?
You kind of said it. It was probably the first scene I shot in the movie, which was in fact meeting Priyanka at the end of the film. It's the most emotionally pregnant moment for me. And luckily I'd been living kind of as Saroo for 8 months, and then, we really got along, and we're shooting in the middle of nowhere in Indore, having dinner every night, and then Garth comes up to me one day and goes, "Okay, you guys cannot hang out anymore. We're going to starve you of each other's energy." And then we met in the scene as you see it, and I walk down those roads, I'm touching the walls and everything's igniting a memory. I turn that corner and I see in the distance these 3 women, and they get closer, and I'm like, wait, and I can see her, and she's got this incredible makeup on, remember? And we got closer and ran this scene, and there's just so much energy and emotion coursing through us, and it felt like we're in Avatar, because there was not a single planted extra there around us. Those were all real villagers. That man who I give the picture, and he's like, okay, come. He was the guy with the best English in that village. He was just the teacher. And, we got there, and they were feeding off us this energy. They don't understand what I'm saying. And I think, Priyanka, you told one or two of the ladies
that he's my son, and she's like, oh my God, you haven't seen your son in 25 years.
Oh, wow.
Like, yes. And it was a real story for her. You do not understand that love and that generosity of that love and the realness of that love, and then, it just outpoured. Like, I'm like, and first of all, like, I'm getting anxiety pangs about not seeing Dave, the human. I'm like, because we really connected, and it's really insane because he separates us. I'm like, okay, this is a very weird kind of feeling, but I understand why this is important. So I speak to, now this acting coach is for the kids, but I need to speak to her because I just need to speak to her. You have to understand that this is just, how am I feeling? Like, why, I said, okay, just trust it and just go with it. I said, okay. And then we go with it, and he's looking for me in the crowd, and that works, right? He's looking for me in the crowd. And this other lady who's my bestie, and I'm looking at her while I'm waiting for Dave to finish his other thing, and they're making me wait in a separate space. And I'm looking at her, I'm like, look at her, look at the ears in her hands, and they said, imagine those years, like, you're waiting for someone, and those lines create, like, you wait, and then, they become so deep, and I'm like hallucinating in this beautiful journey of this other woman that I'm physically looking at, and then I meet him as the character. And I'm like, okay, that's it. It's like outpouring of these amazing things, and yeah, I just hope that, you get to experience that as well, what we experienced.
As soon as I landed in India, Garth said, the first thing he said to me was, I kid you not, he goes, as a little sperm, you've been swimming up to this moment, so don't fuck it up. That's exactly what he said to me. I was like, no pressure then. But it was like Avatar, back to that point, we felt like a molecule, all of us, one single molecule, and they just were feeding off, and by the end of it, these hands were reaching out and touching my face, and I don't know if you saw it, but it was a beautiful feeling.
Did you shoot it with multiple cameras?
Yeah. And he just kept it rolling.
Maintaining that emotion is so...
Yes.
He kept it rolling, and then we split apart, and then we walked
and
back
I think
in
we
again.
did it like 3 times, and because every single time, and
Three
God has a
long
very beautiful, I have to be free right now, but he has a very beautiful way of expressing that, now you will hear the rumble of the earthquake. He'll say like, things like that. Now you're like swimming in the ocean and you're only one. Imagine that feeling. Imagine, guys. Close your eyes and think about yourself in a deep ocean by yourself. It's a really beautiful, deafening kind of feeling, and God makes you do that. So, every single time it was like, it was a different way of, okay, do this now this way. I'm like, okay, right, yeah. It's gorgeous.
Like that small girl, I'd never met her before. She was a girl from the village too. The beautiful, white, radiant teen. And she came, and Priyanka introduced her as my sister. And then I ran the lines, and she was just looking.
And that was shot in the real village that you grew up in, was it?
Yeah.
Close by.
Close by.
Yeah, close by.
I wish we had more time, but we don't. I want just to end this by coming back to you, Saroo, with 2 questions. What is your life now? Where do you live? What do you do?
I'm still in Hobart, Tasmania, and I'm just living with my parents at the moment, just trying to get away from her. But she's my mum, and
They seem pretty nice.
yeah, and we've got so much going on at the moment that my thoughts were we need to stick together. to from when the book came out to all the stages and phases of turning into a movie. And I didn't want her or Dad to sort of feel, people are saying about this, about the character and so on, or something's happening here. So being together, I wanted to diffuse those situations. I never want my mum to sort of feel sort of in a state of indifference about things. And it's been really good, being together. But now, seeing the movies all started, about a year ago actually, I sort of stepped back a bit from work and started to get into this a bit more, and now it's sort of coming to this the crescendo sort of stages, and we're just really wrapped and really happy, and want to sort of enjoy all the times that we've been in the processes of making this movie. So it's time to rock and roll, and in 2 weeks we're going to roar. So, one
very last question, which is, describe when you actually saw the finished film, in what circumstances, where did you see it, and what surprised you most about it?
Well, I saw it by myself, actually. I wanted to see it by myself. And I told the production company, look, I want to see it by myself before my parents. And so I sat down at Fox Studios in Sydney. And I didn't know, I hadn't seen any of it really. And it started out. But in a nutshell, all the euphoric moments in there were so persified very well by individual characters, right to the extent of where Dev's talking to Nicole about not having children, to the point of even the last bit where I sent that text message to my parents, which was being read out, and before coming here, I was actually right at the back there, and I was listening to it, and it almost brought, if I stayed in any longer, a tear to my eye. So I think the thing that I really wanted, and my family collectively, is that we just hope that this film comes out the way that it sort of has been in reality, and it did case to the point, which is great, and I feel very humbled and touched, and proud of it too. I love this film so much, and it's so rare that you see everybody's work, and it's just incredible. This is my second time. See it a second time, it's just as you will. Thank you, everyone.